the next question is about the fourth wave of feminism, which we have now, and the LGBTQIA plus community. And it deals with the concept of intersectionality, because as I see it, the fourth wave of feminism is mostly intersectional. And I was wondering, what as feminists, like, okay, we say we acknowledge other people's experiences, but where is the border? Where do we say, oh, this is feminist, and oh, this is not this is not something we have to deal with anymore. This is not feminist anymore.
Okay.
So you want to know where is the barriers or something?
The cutoff is.
Where's the line between them? Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that before, and I thought that one of the biggest problems we have now is there's so many, that whole anagram, that is very difficult, LGBTD. We keep adding letters and symbols, and it's starting to look like an algorithm. I think the reason I like the idea of using the fourth wave of feminism is simply as an umbrella term things together, because intersectionality has been used a lot in that way anyway. The word intersectional has been expanded to mean pretty much any group that wants to have equality is put under that umbrella, and we think everyone should get equality, because we're starting to realise over the course of time that we're not able to give equality to one group and not the other at the same time. It's complicated, but I think that it would be nice if we just called all of those things the fourth wave of feminism instead of all those letters, because it seems to me that it's very complicated. Most people used to say gay and bisexual, and that was pretty much it. That was your groups. Now we've got other groups, with trans groups and people identifying as different things, and intersex groups. And I mean, we'll discuss that next week, but I'm not really sure intersex is part of those. I think intersex is a separate thing from that because it's biological nature, but we'll discuss that next week. I think that these LGBT blah, blah, blahs could simply be called the fourth wave of feminism, and then people could get behind it, because lots of people support intersectional things. But when you start labelling everything different, you start getting fractures. Like the Women's March we went on had about a dozen different flags of all different shapes and sizes, and we're all marching in the same direction for the same thing. This seemed to me a little confusing that we had so many spectrums, whereas it might be simpler, especially to the people who are opposed to these things, or people we're trying to get to support these things, if we simplified the matter and simply said,
I get what you want to say, Ross. I do have one problem with it. You can choose to be a feminist somewhat. You can say, okay, I'm a feminist, I'm fighting for feminist ideals, for gender equality. You cannot choose to be or not to be LGBTQIA+. And
no, but you can choose not to fight for it.
This whole acronym is so long that I think we should think about another one, or one that still says the same, but is easier to remember, and you don't omit someone by accidentally forgetting a letter.
Like Mogai.
But there's one distinction I'm making though that I hadn't finished with. The reason I'm calling it fourth wave of feminists is because I'm talking about the politically active people. Most people see the LGBT plus community as politically active. There are a lot of gay and trans people who aren't politically active. They don't want to march, they don't want a badge, they don't want anybody, they don't want to wear a t-shirt, they just want to get on their lives. So that's fine. What I'm saying is, for the people who are politically motivated, they could be fourth wave feminists. As opposed to people
is there something you want to tell us?
Right now I try to know any person from like LGBTQIA plus who don't wanna wear t-shirts or march, and I know them. There are lots of people from that community, and that's kinda I know you think like that, Ross, but it's not true, because every single person from that community do something for this community and even for feminism, because
well, that's
they are
fine.
like.
But that's my argument, isn't it? That's what I'm saying. We could make an umbrella term called fourth wave feminists, put everybody together, and then we all walk down the same road. I just think that the more we divide things, for valid reasons or not, the less effective they are. Like I said, even the acronym to me is an analogue for the problem. It's too complicated. It keeps getting grown all the time. Everything has to be made bigger to use it, and we end up not using it. You can't even use it in conversation, which makes, if you're trying to have a discussion to say, I support, as an intersectional feminist, I support LGBT. It's like
You cannot.
a gene code. You can't do it. Then, like you said, you miss someone and they get into that debate. All I'm saying is that we simplify this thing to a single term. It's not going to be perfect. It never is. And no doubt there might even be a fifth wave of feminism when someone comes up with some new options. But for the moment, to make it a workable theory, why don't we just give it that? Oh, it doesn't have to be fourth wave. I'm just using that as an example. We could, as long as we give it a single name or a couple of names, and everybody gets behind that, I think it will make progress a lot easier. I think we're tripping up our own feet at the moment.
So you think that is this bloody anagram is the problem, not the whole different subjects?
I'm saying the anagram is an analog. It's like a representation of the problem in another way. It, in a sense, the name does what it says it's supposed to do. The use of that name is awkward, complicated, and ordinary people don't understand it. Modern feminism is awkward, complicated, and most ordinary people don't understand it. So I'm saying the name is kind of like an analog for the problem. It isn't the problem, but it's a kind of like a reflection of the problem. And if we start by solving that bit of it, maybe we could start solving some of the other stuff somewhere.
You know, there is actually a term, and it's what Rob has said already. It's Mogai, which I like because it sums up everyone, and you can't forget anyone because it means minorities of orientation. So you have lesbian, gay, and bisexuals in there. Then you have gender alignment, so transgender people, everything that encompasses that, and intersex, which in itself is also an umbrella term.
Okay, but the only problem I have with that is it sounds like a character from The Lion King. I mean, I'm being facetious, but I'm also being serious. You have to take into account image and marketing. It's the world we live in now. And things like intersectional feminism took off because it made sense, but only after people understood what intersectional meant. That took quite a while, took nearly a year before people really understood what we were talking about. Remember OSS for the first 6 months? There was like 20 threads. What's intersectional mean? What does feminist mean? Now we've got past that and people use the term fairly easily. So once you get something in the know, I mean, Morgan will do as well. I mean, it would do. Once you get it into the consciousness, it becomes a meme, then it starts doing its job. I just think that's a good first step to do something like that because it's so messy now that, like I said, I went round and asked a bunch of ordinary mortals these questions before today. I asked them about the transgender and I asked them about this. And it was pretty much as you expect. Most people have nothing against any of these groups. I couldn't find anybody outside of our OSS group who had a clue what these letters meant. Well, most people's question was, why does it keep getting bigger? Where are these other people coming from? How come there's so many different groups? Which is, from their point of view, it's a logical question. And you say, well, it's not. We're just encompassing more of the existing groups. So their question was simple. Why are you encouraging me? Because all these groups have a shared thing. The thing that links all of these disparate groups together is they all suffer the same inequalities and prejudices. So that's what links them.
They all suffer oppression and they all suffer prejudices.
Yes.
Maybe not the same, but they all suffer some
prejudices. Suffer from it. Yeah. So the idea is that if we made it, say, the fourth wave of feminism, we tie it in with the feminist movement, which is already mobilising to deal with the inequality. And then we also deal with the fact that we start getting people involved who can join it and who want to help. A lot of people said they'd love to help, but they don't understand what they're helping, because some people were religious. They had some religious objections to some groups, not other. Nothing violent, but they just didn't want to be associated with something that their particular religious beliefs might question. And they said they weren't saying they wouldn't. What they said was they didn't know if they were, which is a very different question. So that's what I'm saying. If we simplify the label, even if it's not 100% great, and don't get me wrong, there's going to be so much flack. We'll get all those negative people with a, does that mean you hate everybody as well as men now, feminist? But you can't really get away from all of that. That's what I thought. I just think that if we can't solve the giant problem, why don't we just rename it to something? And the Mulgai one works as well, because that includes everybody. It's nice and simple, and you can tell it to normal people and know what it means. That was just where I'm going.
Okay. We're going back to the boundaries. We're going back to the boundaries of feminism.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't that? But then I don't think that's always a bad thing, Robert. I think stirring that debate up, sometimes intersectional feminism exists because third wave feminists were challenged on what it was to be a third wave. And from that, they started looking at it again. And when they started looking at it, it started expanding. They took new people on board and it became intersectional. I mean, we've seen what happened to the radicals of all sides. They get stuck. The second wave feminist radicals are trapped in a box. They've painted themselves into a corner. They hate everybody and they can change nothing. Now that's what happens if you don't re-examine yourself enough. So forcing these debates, sure, it's tedious and it can be counterproductive. Once again, explaining to a room of people that you don't hate men because you're a feminist. But if that's the price we have to pay to move things on, it's not a big one.
What I meant was, shall we go back to the original topic now, which was where do the boundaries of feminism stop? Like Valerie originally...
what sense do you mean stop? Would we stop?
Re-ask the question, V.
Because I was wondering, I see myself as an intersectional feminist, and I try to educate myself and I try to get as much information as possible. And sometimes I just wonder, is this a thing? Is this a problem I, as an intersectional feminist, should care about? Or is it not? As in, what are topics that intersectional feminists should care about, should take into consideration, should fight for, and what are topics that intersectional feminists can support, but not because they're intersectional feminists, but just because they think, well, it's the right thing to do for them personally.
I suppose the only delineation there would be local in general, because in general terms, there's nothing intersectional feminist, providing it's to the benefit of the society and equality. There isn't anything we shouldn't not fight for. However, if it's to do with your local, should somebody have green traffic cones or orange, or better yet, should somebody have blue traffic cones or pink traffic cones? Now, you could say in a sense that's a bit sexist, but in the grander scheme of things, I don't think we'd really care about that because it's a local issue between these guys and the traffic cones. But for a general issue, I don't see anything we should, from the Middle East problems, social economics, migration, immigration. I think all of those things come under the intersectional feminist flag. If we believe in equality, we have to fight for everything.
Ross, I would agree with you on these, that intersectional feminists should care about the situation of women in the Middle East and immigration and all of that, but I'm wondering, is climate change, as an example, an issue that intersectional feminists, because they are intersectional feminists, should they care about this, or should they say, well, I care about it because it's a logical thing to do?
No, you're right.
Not necessarily because I'm an intersectional feminist.
No, I see what you mean. In the terms of intersectional feminism, no. Climate change is not an intersectional feminist issue. It touches on intersectional feminist issues because it touches on everything. But should you divide your resources if they're limited between the things you class as intersectional feminism and climate change? No, you shouldn't. You should focus on pick your battles. Other groups, which you could be a member of, as you said, Greenpeace, for example, would fight for those things. That's fine. Yeah, I see what you mean. No, I don't think we should do stuff like that because our resources aren't unlimited. As you said, we've got enough complexities just finding a name without deciding to solve it. So yeah, I don't think it's a feminist issue per se. Certainly it touches on all of them, but no, I don't think climate change should be something we would specifically target. We don't need another letter on the end of the LGB for that one. We don't need a C on the we don't need a C on the end for that. I don't think.
I would say that
any other contributions to that one?
I would say that anything to do with gender equality should be covered under intersectional feminism to start with. Number two, back when with the climate change issue, that interrelates in a way because if you are fighting for gender equality, if you go back, and I know you haven't read this yet, but Sex and World Peace, I'm going to go back and talk about the book. They talk about the tree with roots and how things interact and interlock and so on. Gender equality was the basis of all of it. If you had, let's say, 50-50 male to female points of view and so on and so forth, then you'd be able to tackle more issues on climate change or war or this and that, all of those things, because when male and female opinions come together, essentially by rights, they normally cancel each other out in some ways. If you are having an argument, and you've got a male argument and a female argument, and if you're taking both points of view into consideration, then they generally nullify each other in some way.
Yeah, I agree.
I suppose it comes down to resources, though, doesn't it?
Go on, Agnes. What did you want to say?
Go ahead, Agnes.
Well, this easy answer for that. Every subject is important for like feminism. Every single one, which is like what includes helping or sort out things for like human beings, including climate change, because that's an important thing for us as well.
Yeah, but I think what I took from Valerie's point was resourcing. We can't do everything. If we try and take on the whole planet, we're going to run out of people. We're going to run out of time. We need to. If you're an you can do these other things as well. But if you're an intersectional feminist identified in the world as intersectional feminist, to avoid the confusion I mentioned earlier with the names, then we should pick things that are relevant to that and expend our resources on those. Because we can't do everything.
Essentially, in achieving gender equality, everything else, like domino effect, should fall into place.
I agree, because you increase your resources by 50%. It's the only one of the things we're fixing that actually has
focusing on
a positive benefit.
Focusing on gender equality as intersectional feminism.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, that's where we draw the line.
That was one of my questions. Like, where do I have to say, no, that's not a feminist cause. It's a difficult. We see it now. It's a difficult decision to make.
The way we could do it then is we look at it that way. We say, right, this is the problem. Does this problem have an active element of inequality between the genders? Does this problem have a male and female aspect? If it doesn't, then we probably shouldn't address it. So say, for example, does it matter if your high court judge in your insurance claim is male or female. No. So if someone said there's not a problem with the judges being male or female, but there's a problem with the insurance system, that, in my view, wouldn't be an intersectional feminist issue because it doesn't have any gender orientation to it. There's nothing we could do to make it, we couldn't, having a judge male or female wouldn't change the flaws in that system. So in that case, we wouldn't put time in. But for example, something like gender pay, which clearly is delineated as an inequality, we could put time and effort in because it would be an intersectional feminist issue. It might be that some things will be case by case.
But I'm just... that was my question that I had for the last few weeks. What is a feminist enough or not?
Okay. Well, that's a hard question to answer. So why don't we turn on its head? What isn't? Find one that clearly isn't something that an intersectional feminist should look at. That if you can't fix it, break it more, then fix it that way. So find something you clearly know for certain as a baseline you would never think is a feminist issue. It's not easy, but if you find one, that's a good starting point. So you can find something that you definitely do not want, everyone agrees on, is definitely not an intersectional issue, and take it from there.
Good luck with
so
me.
We have a look at it. What's that? Yeah.
Good luck with.
It's a good question though, because it's one of those questions that sounds easy to answer when you first ask it, and then the more you ask it, you realise how hard it is to answer. But yeah, that's how I would do it. I would flip the logic around, because trying to do it the other way around is too complicated. Simplify it. Find something that definitely isn't, and work back from that. It's not that simple these days. The things are so interconnected now. It's not that simple these days.
Yeah, that's true. It's like... Because, for example, take animal rights. Are animal rights
there you go.
A feminist issue? I would say no, but maybe if you think...
There you go. That's a good one. That's a good one. No, because they categorically aren't. We're not diminishing the animal rights or the species barrier, but it clearly isn't to do with human genders or the treatment of human genders. It's a species. So animal rights is a worthy cause, but it's not something that gets a letter on the end. It doesn't have anything to do with intersectional feminism. So there you go. You've got a yardstick. Even Agnes can agree with that one. The rights of pandas is not an intersectional feminist issue.
I have news for you. That's why it's called animal rights, not human rights.
There you go.
Feminism is gender equality. Gender equality is human rights. So everything which is outside that is not.
There we go.
Not
there
like
you go.
Equality, right?
Yeah.
See, start from something it's not, and see how much simpler the question is when you look at it from the way around. So you start from something it's not and work back. So now you know anything that doesn't come under a terminology of a human rights issue and the broadest parameter is not an intersectional feminist issue.
Because fighting for equality is basically be treated like a human being. Every like sexist, every gender. So we fight for the balance to be right.
For everybody. But that's
not like for my little chow have better like food for something for tomorrow.
Let's not diminish the animals here. I secretly think they're better than us anyway, but that's not the point.
Yeah, but
so is there anything else? Anybody who has talked about it
we should
we can skip or we can finally start the important thing. What we are on says, which is book.
Oh yeah, we forgot about
at last.
This is one of the difficulties I had when the OSS were pushing this was the fact that most of us haven't finished reading the book yet, and then when we do read the book, we'll do it for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be finished. So it's not really something you can keep doing every single week, because For example, have you guys who are still reading it, have you moved on sufficiently to have any additional information that you could update your previous opinions on yet?
No, because I haven't read Bad Feminist in the last week.
There you go. Well,
No,
there you go. See, that's...
Why are you talking about feminists? We
But
must
should we
talk about hunger.
Because
the
I
other
first started reading Bad Feminist.
I think you guys need to read the Hunger Force.
What you
So I
don't
think that Millie did that wrong.
what you don't understand in Emma Watson post. Hi, I give you new book, which is called Hunger.
Hunger.
And if you have
time later.
I
and if you have time later,
Read the question.
Bad Feminist, then I put pressure on myself, so I read both of the books until they are due, because then I think, oh, I still have to read Hunger as well, and then I...
What's the first thing they teach you in college? Read the question.
yes,
Yes, that's why I read that.
and understand what you read.
Exactly. Yeah,
Nice.
true, actually.
Well, I
Exaggerate.
read that much. I read that much, so I'm in the halfway.
Oh, well, so you're reading the Hunger story, yeah. I've read the Hunger and I've given it to someone else to read by now. So I'm well up. Yes, I'm a bad feminist for doing it that way as well. Yeah, because I read it and I had a bit of a Valerie moment. I just read, was reading as well. I had a bit of a Valerie moment. I read the whole book.
The only thing I'd like to say is I really like how she writes the essay.
This one as well. I just started.
Good. She's a good writer. What's that one? Have a look. Is that the other one?
That was Bad
That
Feminist.
was Bad Feminist.
You're really, really good at starting books. There's a certain pattern here, though. I think you know what I'm going to say next. When you start reading a book, there's a logical follow on.
Well, I have 3 books what I read in the same time, so you see.
That's normal.
I read fictional books and some science books, but I don't read these books Emma gives me together because generally they're too bloody heavy. I hope the next book she picks is a lot lighter, don't you? Even Jen was saying that.
Picked a lighter book. We've had quite some heavy books lately.
Yeah, maybe another time for another, Caitlin Moran. We need a slightly lighter book, I think.
Okay, so basically I think we finish with the questions.